What's up, everybody? My name is Jonathan Palombo. I'm the Marketing Communications Manager here at Tier4 Group, and today I'm joined by our Chief Operating Officer, Robert Bouchard.
Hey,
And
John.
hey, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, good. And we're here today to break down some of the key insights that he learned from the SIA Executive Forum, which was held in beautiful Austin, Texas. I'd love to visit. And we're going to talk about why the staffing and talent industry is officially moving away from the volume game. So we're going to talk about what actually scales, where transformation fails, and how leaders can design organizations built for repeatable growth. So we're going to get into it. I'm really excited for this conversation, Rob, and to dissect some of these insights that you picked up. I'm
Yeah.
sure how was it, a 3 day?
Yeah, it was 3 days. And I'll say Austin is a booming city, clearly. A lot of tech investments that are happening in Austin, going vertical. And the infrastructure, I think, is a little bit lagging still, even though it's the state capital. I didn't venture out very far, but enjoyed my time and look forward to the next time I get to go back.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, so having recently attended the forum, there was a strong theme
hmm
that the volume game is over. So tell us a little bit about that from your perspective. What does it actually mean for staffing and talent firms right now?
Yeah, I think as I was reflecting on my time last week, I came up with a statement, John, that I think really is going to resonate. And it's people aren't resisting change, they're surviving complexity. And when we look at how recruitment and recruitment technology has evolved over the last 5, 6 years, constantly switching tabs, using multiple systems, lack of consistent or repetitive integrations. Recruiters now are spending more time doing administrative tasks and juggling across multiple systems than they ever have. And I think when we look at the volume game, ultimately it's creating a throttling or a bottleneck. And firms that will survive or come out on the other side of this, I think will have organizational maturity. I think they'll continue to have really advanced AI enabled solutions, very disciplined growth frameworks and understanding what they do and how they do it, cultural alignment and buy into that, I think is something that's really a prerequisite for scalable success. I think firms that fail will fail to institutionalize that change. I think they won't invest deliberately in the right technology and the right people. And I think that when we look at how value is created across the talent ecosystem, firms that risk that stagnation, even when demand remains strong, will ultimately remain idle. And so, as I think about what that ultimately means when we look at the volume game completely, it's a matter of choosing to buy and build and where we invest our dollars. And so, having clear direction from leadership is really key. Buy in from leadership is really key. Understanding and communicating the why is also really key. And something that we talk about a lot here is balance. So, I think leveraging the human element, blending that with the technology component, firms that get that right, John, I think will ultimately survive the volume game and come out on the other side.
Sure. It all trickles down, right?
It really does.
Yeah. And I guess that's why those legacy models are probably so strained, right? Because
Yeah.
all the disruption, and we just can't keep up with
hmm
technology.
I would say that selecting the right partners and evolving with them is also a key in that decision science.
Sure.
And I believe that for the most part, we've gotten that right.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that there aren't constraints. We've talked about and been very vocal about what the last 15, 16 months has looked like here. There was a period of thrashing that was very painful, but we learned from those. And it comes back to one of the things you hear me say all the time, John, and it's iterate what works, or repeat what works and iterate what doesn't. And if it doesn't work, let's fix it. Let's get it right. And I think that the firms that continue to question, ask the questions, and how is this working? How could it work better? What can we do to make this better or more efficient for you? And compounding that, doubling down on that, creating multiplication around that really is, to me, the ones that will come out on the other side of the volume component. We can throw people at the problem, but people can't work 24/7, 365 and be infinitely nice like certain intelligence can now.
I like what you said about long-term relationships with your
Mhm.
partners,
Yeah.
and that you're in it for the long haul,
hmm
and that you have to have understanding that things are going to change along the way, but you
Yeah.
have to work with them to meet
mhm,
step up to meet those challenges. And
Yeah.
I think we do a pretty decent job of that here at Tier 4 Group.
We do, and we like to say we buy slow, and a lot of our partners would agree with that. We ask a lot of questions. One of the things I think you and I have learned as we've gone through some selection process is having clearly defined use cases and making sure that when you're evaluating products and you're doing demos, that you're asking those questions and understanding the capabilities. One of the themes that came from Exec Forum last week is that every demo is almost perfect. And it's easy to be excited by a demo. And those demos generally are 15, 30 minutes. What happens after that? Who's going to be your stakeholders? Who actually is buying into the product? Who's going to help you lead that implementation, that transformation, and then ultimately that utilization? And utilization is what creates return.
So I want to shift gears here real quick. And there's a theme that came up, and that's leaders needing to spend more time working on the business
Yeah.
rather than in it. But let's talk about the changes that leaders need to make to
Mhm.
truly achieve this shift. And I think, here at Tier 4 Group, we're rapidly growing. We're we've gone from, in just a matter of a couple of years, from a handful of employees to where we are now. And
Yeah.
I think we've experienced some of that
Mhm.
pain as well. So maybe talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that shift.
It's a really exciting shift, and it's one that also can be painful. But what I've learned is the more that you hire the right people and get them in the right seats, the more success the business has. The more leaders like myself have an opportunity to look holistically at the direction of the organization. We talk about a lot like our 3-year plan and what that means, and what does the next year look like? What does the next year after that look like? We've been very transparent with the team so they understand the common objections that we're working towards, those goals that we're working against and towards. So I think as leaders, we still are drawn into the thrill of the hunt, whether as a recruiter, it's changing someone's career or putting them in a position that changes their lifestyle, their family tree, like those things, that their career, the upward mobility of it. On the other side, for those of us that grew up in the sales org, helping clients find those people is something that we love. It's just ingrained in us. It's why we're still in this business. It's why we're on the staffing side of talent acquisition. And it can be really hard to let that go because that dopamine hit that we get on every placement, it's what keeps us coming back. It's why I've been in the industry 20 years. It's why our CEO, Bessie's been in the industry, 20 years. And I think those are the challenges for us. As you start to scale, you have to realize that you've got to lean into the people that you've brought into the team to take on those roles and responsibilities that we once were true Swiss Army knives. We did everything
Old ass.
for everybody. And that can be really tough as a leader to let that go. But then on the other side, there's a freeingness to it. I will say, I think I made up a word there, but there's a freeing nature to it to say, okay, now I can really create more of a multiplier by focusing on these things for the organization: change management, training, technology implementations, automations, building out GPTs that can create more capacity and efficiency. I think when I start to step back and realize that by doing those things, it creates more of a multiplier for the business, that really hits home in that 80 on the business versus day to day in the business.
I mean, in my own experience, I'm, 7 years into my career, but I've been a marketing generalist my whole career.
Right.
And so there's going to come a point where I'm going to have to make that shift in my own career, not necessarily working on the
Yep.
business,
Yep.
but, um, being able to properly delegate, discern,
Yeah.
protect, talk, all
Mhm.
those things as we grow here and we add people and you get a team and,
Right.
you start to, you want to be involved in the trenches, right?
You
You want to
do.
get down and dirty. You want to
Yeah.
do these things. You want to spearhead, you have to be able to hand them off. You have to be able to remove yourself
You do.
and you have to have the right perspective,
Yeah.
like you're discussing.
Well, and I think too, John, to your point, and this is where I would just confirm that we're on the right path or validate that we are, is we ask a lot of people. We have big responsibilities here. There's a lot on our agendas every week. We can look at our calendars, and that will show the amount of work that we complete every week. And when we look at our marketing team here at Group, it's you and it's me with some oversight, and then we're very grateful to have a marketing specialist on the retain side. We're really excited about welcoming in an intern this summer, possibly a second, depending on how that works out. But you still have to make sure that they understand what their responsibilities are, and you can't do the work for them. Once you assign those responsibilities, there's an expectation. And I think as leaders, we just want to do everything for everybody, and we can't.
It's impossible. At a certain point, it's impossible.
This
So I want to pivot to transformation and AI, and I'm sure these were hot topics at SIA. I
mm,
mean, these are the kinds of buzzwords you're hearing everywhere. You can't really get away from them no matter where you go. Every single panel,
yeah,
it's happening, right?
yeah,
So a lot of firms are clearly experimenting with AI. We know last year we went through, our own adoption, right?
mm,
And, we've integrated AI technology into our processes and workflows. But not everyone's seeing results. We are.
we
We're
have,
proud to say we are.
mm,
The proof is there,
right.
and we're really excited to showcase that in real time. But from what you've seen and where you are today, what separates real transformation from surface level experimentation?
That's a great question. I think it comes back to utilization. And we use that word a lot here, but when we measure usage, utilization, that is the key. I think if we look back 3, 4 years when Chat GPT, December of 2022, and then for the next year, everyone talked about generative AI. And what we weren't talking about was cognitive or adaptive AI. That started to creep in the end of 2024. And I think as an organization where I see a lot of firms get it wrong and where we've got it wrong in the past is AI, intelligence, technology is not set it and forget it. And I think a lot of us have been led to believe, John, that tech, specifically artificial intelligence, is, oh, you just put it in the environment and it will just do its thing. And on a surface level, that seems great. That's how we were sold for a period of time, but that is not how it works. And unless you have somebody who is willing to administer, monitor, manage, troubleshoot, continue to iterate and update, it will not go right. And I can assure you that we've learned from those mistakes. And having a champion or honestly like a true subject matter expert is really key. And I think there are three different buckets right now in the staffing world. There are firms like ours that have embraced it, that are out there really kind of leading the pack, and there are others that are in the same boat as us. There really are. I've met a lot of them that are doing a lot of great things, and some that are even more further advanced than we are. I've also met this middle group that has done a little bit, but they're in more of a wait and see. Because if we go back to Betsy's post about how quickly technology is advancing, they're waiting and seeing what's working and what's not, learning from some of us who are front running and leading the pack. And then there are the others that are in this legacy world that refuse AI. They think it is a replacement. They don't believe it works the way it is. They believe that there's bias. They think it's just a thing that's going to come and go like the fax machine. And I don't believe that's the case. As we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, it really, to me, as I talk with other leaders that are trying to figure this out and learning what works and what doesn't, it doesn't matter the size of your firm right now, John. And I think that's a lot of us in the industry think the smaller firms who are more nimble can iterate and implement faster. Yes, we can. But
Yes.
we can also put more of a burden and a bottleneck on our teams because they're smaller. We can't do more individualized pilots or team pilots or regionalized pilots like some of the bigger players can. They also have a lot more funding behind them
Mhm.
and can make more mistakes. And so that's the challenge for a firm like ours is how do we invest our dollars and how do we get that right? And then the last thing is I've met some firms that just blindlessly buy everything and then they create a lot of technical debt, and ultimately it's never really gets out of a pilot phase or a 12-month commitment because there isn't a leadership level commitment to its success. They were sold on something that was really more hope than it was strategy. And I think that's where the firms that are getting it wrong really believe that intelligence is set it and forget it, that as soon as you put it into your environment, it's going to create immediate return. And it really doesn't. It takes a lot of time and intentional behavior in order to create that return.
So I want to talk about a big idea that came out of SIA, as I'm sure, talked about broader talent ecosystem.
Mhm.
So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. I think a lot of staffing firms are having to shift their paradigm a little bit
Mhm.
because we have to go beyond the value of traditional staffing,
Right.
right? So we have to expand and be a little more strategic in how we approach our clients and solve their
Mm.
needs. And it's more so about helping them navigate through complexity and
Yeah.
modernization. And you become a consultant, from a technological perspective, especially
Mhm.
in our industry, because we're very niche.
Mhm.
We focus on the technology piece of it. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about that. What are you hearing on the front lines?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring that up. A common theme that's been going on has been fraud as a service, candidate fraud. And an interesting statistic that was shown at SIA Exec Forum was 70% of our customers, of our clients in the staffing world, expect us to have fully vetted the candidates from a compliance governance. So the onus is on us as a firm to make sure that who we're representing is who they say they are. When I look at that number and then take some of the data that I've shared out in more public forums, which is we estimate that around 38% of our inbound activity is fraudulent, fake, or simply just
Wow, that's
unqualified.
amazing.
It's a,
It's almost 50%.
it's a
It's not
big,
far.
big, 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 big,
Yeah,
big, big number, right?
yeah, it's too big.
But during my breakout panel with Aaron Wang, the CEO for Alex AI, we did a little litmus test and had everyone in the room stand up and talked about the number of inbound applications each firm is receiving on a given week. And there was one woman in the audience that stood up. Her firm receives over 7,000 inbound applications a week. They
Wow,
have 75 recruiters.
wow. Okay,
Now, the numbers don't add up in terms of those recruiters' ability to evaluate all of those inbound applications and disposition
is that
them.
1,000 per?
1,000 per,
Or
and
no, it'd be 100 per,
uh,
right? 7,075. So
yeah,
it'd be about 100
but
resumes per.
the statistics say that we, on average, can only look at somewhere between 175 to 200 profiles a day.
Yeah,
So the math still maths, but
yeah,
based on the volume, there are going to be opportunities where things slip through the cracks.
sure.
And so I think, why did I zero in on candidate fraud with your question? Because right now, we're all trying to figure out how we're going to combat this. When you look at our technology and how great it's gotten over the last couple of years, how far it's advanced, guess who else's technology has advanced? The bad actors. So with
Sure.
your deep fakes, your voice fakes, your ability to really create alternate identifications, and to the point that the naked eye may not be able to detect that. For a staffing firm, that's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. How do we combat that? And the answer is you've got to have a multi-step approach. We
Mhm.
are really good about that, but when I was talking to other leaders last week, they're still trying to figure out how they're going to navigate the complexity of it. And that's where I come back to, I mentioned Alex AI and their platform. It's one that really helps us out a lot when we look at the interview qualifications, video integration, technical assessments. And so it's really about having and selecting the right partners, like we talked about
Yeah,
earlier, and having pieces of those within your candidate life cycle.
yeah,
You and I have spent a lot of time on the candidate life cycle, the candidate journey, and what is it, 24 to 30 different steps in the candidate journey that we've looked at. And every step of that way, something can go wrong. And that is a challenge for firms when we look at talent acquisition is how are we making sure that at the end of every day, we've done everything we can to identify, source, and attract the best talent for our clients.
yeah. And then where do humans come into that process, right? Because I
Yeah.
think we're looking at using technology and AI to try to root out those fake resumes, those
Hmm.
fake candidates at these various steps in the process. And when there's
Yeah.
so many, but you can have key identifiers and you
Hmm.
can have certain guardrails. But where, at what point do humans need to come into this
Yeah.
process to help root out that fraud?
Yeah, the answer is simple. It's beginning, middle, and end, and everything in between. But we want to use our automations and our intelligence to create a human handoff. And in order for that to be effective, it requires commitment and intentionality. It also requires participation on the candidate side. It does. It's both. It requires their time. But for us, we want this to be a 50-50 journey where through our front end acquisition tools and through our front end screening tools, we can create capacity on the other side for that human element because humans have the ability to create influence, but really build rapport and relationships. And those are the things when we look at what really matters most and what drives differentiation for a firm like ours, it's our people and then our technology. So it's always the people first. It's so we want them involved in that process from the beginning, middle, and end, and the entire way through. We have a thing called the Tier 4 touch, which really matters to us, and there's multiple layers within that system. But the way forward for us is balance, as I've said a lot. It still is critical, but the human element to what we do is the most important differentiator we have.
So for any leaders who are listening in to this conversation and they're trying to scale and they're trying to navigate these really
Mhm,
challenging issues that require a lot for a team, require deep research and expertise.
mhm.
What is one mindset shift or focus area that will have the biggest impact over, let's say, the next 12 to 18 months?
When I think about that, it comes back to how is work really getting done? And if I drop down further, I think about repeatability. So, our ability to create repeatable and scalable processes, I think is the difference. So it has to be easily repeated. Simplification. I mean, when I think about how many times we've overcomplicated an issue that we should have simplified, we would have gotten it right a lot sooner. But that investment in, I'll say the discipline aspect of it, which is we can't just try it once and say it doesn't work. We have to continue to test and try and then document and iterate and go back to we put this system in place. We believe it's repeatable. If we identify gaps, let's close or identify those gaps. And I think one of the things for us is as humans is when we want to implement change, we really want to identify and shoot holes in it. And instead of embracing it,
Because we don't want to do it
because we don't want to do it, we don't want to do it.
for any reason, right?
Yeah, but it comes back to what I said at the beginning of the conversation, and we're not necessarily resisting change. We're surviving complexity, and the more complex your tech stack, the more complex your process, the more complex your operating system, the more complex your culture and environment, the more there will be friction.
Mhm.
Guaranteed. The more there will be fatigue, that's guaranteed as well. And the ways that we combat that are continuing to ask the team to adopt, but not enforce that adoption, giving them the choice, but communicating why we're going in this direction, why we believe that this technology is the right step for the organization and for them. I will say this, I don't want a sales executive or a recruiter on our team job to be more difficult. I want it to be easier. But there have been times where we've made it more difficult. But change can make things more difficult in the beginning,
Yeah.
but over time that
They're like
diminishes.
growing pains.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Sometimes you have to almost go a step backwards to move 2 steps forward, it
Yeah.
feels like.
Yeah.
And, I think there's some frustration to that, but,
Mhm.
you come out on the other side better for it,
You do.
you get time back, you have an established you feel really good about
Yeah.
that when it's there, right? When you got
Yeah.
the process down and everything's working as it should, and then you can start to focus on other things. It's a journey though.
It is.
It's a process, it takes time, and,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, this was a really great
Yeah,
conversation.
man.
I just wanna one thing that really stood out to me, I think that you highlighted is that statistic about 38%, uh,
Yeah.
submissions and resumes being fraud. I mean, that's
Mhm.
insane. So that kinda highlights, I think some of the urgency in this industry behind addressing some of these issues brought by just the rapid advancement of technology,
Yeah.
we're harnessing it, right?
Right.
But sometimes it can move quicker than we can. That's just fact.
Yeah, we want our clients and our candidates to benefit
Yeah.
through our evolution. And when we think about what the next phase looks like when 1,000 leaders get together and everyone's trying to learn from each other. It became very clear to me that the volume game is over.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there isn't a place for that. Identifying how you navigate it and working through it is really the key. And I think organizations that are AI enabled but balance that with the human element, like we've talked about, are the ones that will be on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. There'll
And
always be high volume.
and again,
Yeah.
if you can learn or navigate how to support that volume and create a very tight strategy that is repeatable and scalable, then it will be beneficial.
So,
Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll leave you with is I heard something last week too that said I don't remember the survey that they were referencing, but even with all of the new tools that have been put in place, most employees, specifically in our industry, are saying that their job has actually not gotten easier.
yeah.
It's gotten harder,
Yeah.
and that hurts. That
It's not the
hurts.
way it should be, right?
No,
It feels
it's
backwards.
not the way we envisioned it. But I wanted to give a huge shout out and thank you to Aaron Wang again, as I mentioned, and his team at Alex AI for the opportunity for me to come to Austin and sit on a panel with Aaron. I also wanted to thank our friends at Tracker for a an awesome closing party, and our friends at TechServe for the invite as well. Austin's a great town, so go visit it. And to everyone I had the opportunity to meet and interact with during my time there, thank you. I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and your takeaways from SIA. We could talk about a lot of these topics all day.
Yep,
Really, just kind of keep moving on. But
there we go.
if this conversation resonated with you, please be sure to subscribe, share it with your team, with your network, and join us next time as we continue to explore how modern leaders are navigating change, technology, and growth. Signing off.
Bye.